Okay, let's call this meeting to order, the regular meeting of September 27th at 6:37. Thank you and welcome to everybody who's here. I see a couple of new faces, so that's great. Let's see, the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the regular meeting held on September 13th.
I make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from September 13th, 2022.
Okay, I'll second that. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is audience of citizens. Any comments, Jane?
I want to reserve my comments until after I've heard what you want, what you're proposing for the Arpa funds.
Okay, that's fine. We're not proposing anything. I'm simply giving an update of what requests we've gotten, and we'll have some more conversation. But that's fine. Okay.
I'm speaking in my capacity as the Vice Chair of the RTC, and I'd like to make a endorsement tonight for Peter Knox for the open position on the Board of Finance. Peter's a Deep River native and has went away, and then he came back again. He's been back 20 years. He has a 30-plus year history in banking, a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge of commercial lending. He's also had a lot of civic responsibility sitting on boards when he was a resident raising a family in Old Saybrook. So he's a great candidate, and I've shared this also with the Board of Finance. I want you to have a chance to see his resume. And then secondarily, I wanted to ask where we were. It's been about 5 weeks since we suggested you take a look at Ben Whalen for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering where that stands. My understanding is no one has spoken to him yet. So I don't know what the process is or what we should anticipate.
Yeah, I don't know. I have not spoken with Ben. I don't know about the other guys.
No, I haven't yet.
Right now, I haven't been quite ready to move forward with pushing him onto the agenda. But as I tell these guys all the time, I'm not the only one in this particular administration. Either of any of these three guys, any of the three of us are welcome to put something on the agenda. I've not heard from any of the others that want to move it forward that quickly right now either. I know 5 weeks is not quickly, but right now I'm not prepared to move that name forward.
He's on the list.
So which is, you expect to be called by?
Yeah, I
does that
anticipate
work?
that I know that he's in constant contact with our other selectmen, and I assume that I'll be speaking with him sometime soon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion of ARPA funds. As you know, probably a month or two ago, we had a quick update of requests that we already had. I would like to now just update everyone on all of the other requests. Jane made a comment last meeting that she didn't think that we were going to share all this, so I just want to make sure that we are sharing all of the information with everyone as they've come in.
And we're not making any decisions tonight.
No.
Right.
As far as that goes, I know that there are other applications that are going to come in, that are pending. I also have not yet completed the work that needs to be done with a fellow who has worked for other communities as far as managing and running a grant program for businesses in town. Old Line is the closest that I know of that has done that, and it worked out very well, but they did it in a way that I support and want to do as well. I want to take it out of any local hands, if you will. I want to put that on a third party so that he can manage questions, he can manage answers, and he can manage decisions once we decide how we're going to do it. But I want to speak with him. I want to get an inventory of what's happening in town and who's in town, and so we can have an idea of what number to get to apply for that. But that I hope that is done. I'd like to close, probably put a statement out sometime soon that says we're going to close the application process in November, and then we can start moving forward with going through the applications and going through the process of determining who moves, moving things from the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Finance, and to the Board of Finance, and to the town.
Mhm.
So, unless you want to, we can go over all of the previous requests.
It probably wouldn't hurt just
Yeah,
to
that's
say
fine.
them, yeah.
Okay, so, let's see. The current, let's just go through the list that I have right now, and we actually have some folks from the Historical Society. I don't know if anyone else is here to represent, but the Deep River Historical Society has asked for $53,000 to put new roofs on both buildings and an updated security system. You're welcome to speak if you would like to about any of that. I know the chair is here, Bruce, if you'd like to.
I don't think it's necessary. I think the application pretty much is
Yeah.
self-explanatory.
Okay.
I mean, if you have a question of us, I would entertain.
No, I think it was pretty clearly stated, the roofs are old, the roofs need to be repaired, and I think it's very appropriate for us to look at some infrastructure and things like that for this organization.
And I'd also just like to say how important it is that we secure Deep River's treasures, its history, its documents, its past, photographs, with good roofs.
Yeah, no,
and sound
absolutely.
structures.
Absolutely. No, Deep River, the Historical Society was a very big part of the Deep River Day that we just celebrated. And a part of that was some of the artifacts and photographs that we have of old Deep River, and it was fun. So that's on the list. The Deep River Public Library has requested $119,850.
I'm on the board and I can speak to that if anyone has any questions.
Sure, yeah.
So we put together a list, I'll circulate this. We came up with 6 different items. We listed them pretty much in priority. Some of them had to do directly with what we thought were impacts of COVID. For example, we asked for having a part-time young adult librarian to serve that need, considering how many people were having mental health issues, young people, and during all of COVID and the aftermath of that. We looked at having some program extensions of current programs that seemed successful during the COVID period when everything was remote. We looked at extending some of our digital materials. And then we looked at a couple of what I would call infrastructure ideas. One was, I think the library staff and the board members felt was long overdue, and that was revamping the circulation desk. It just is not particularly friendly. It impedes the flow. The sound carries, so people can't do quiet reading. And you also, it's not built for the current age. It doesn't have proper plugs. You can't put files in. I guess it's a 1960s structure, and here we are in 2022. We also looked and requested having privacy pods. And a couple of other libraries have had them successfully because there's more need for students studying together and also for business people to come in and maybe have a meeting. Maybe that was more intense during COVID, but people seem to be continuing to be working remotely. So that was an idea. We got costs for a 2-person pod and a single pod and that sort of thing. And then lastly, we looked at improving the outdoor area structurally so that you could hold more programs there. People could do some of their outdoor work there, weather permitting, etc. So I'll just pass this around to folks if you want to look at this more. It was a big ticket. We were creative. I wouldn't say we're hopeful, but we would like some of it, considering it's a beautiful thing.
Yep. No, there are some really unique. The privacy pods is something I never would have thought of. I love the patio idea. That's really good, and that will play right into what the garden club is planning and the rain garden and all that kind of stuff. So that could really work out nicely.
Thank you.
Next is the Pandemonium Rainforest has asked for $60,000. Part of that was to put towards an animal center. For an enclosed area for some of the reptiles and other unique animals that are kept there with air conditioning and temperature control and that kind of thing. Another part of that was for paths through the outdoors. It's a pretty unique place and very historical as far as what was there, and it's probably the closest remaining historical area with anything that had to do with the ivory trade. So what's there combine what's there and what's up at the Historical Society would be a really nice ivory trade or ivory manufacturing historical tour. Then also there was some money requested for the museum at the Pandemonium Rainforest, so they asked for $60,000. Tri-Town Youth Services asked for $48,140 and that is part of a
Specific number.
no, it's a very specific number, and that's a number that was taken, and Essex and Chester have already agreed to take some of their ARPA money and send it towards them for their social services programs. But both Essex and Chester's agreement was contingent upon Deep River joining as well. So, frankly, that's something I would have liked to have moved forward when we were doing the other stuff, but it didn't work out. Shoreline Soup Kitchen has asked for $10,000 from all of the communities that it serves to go towards the purchase and maintenance of a refrigerator truck to help with their deliveries of food around the communities.
They've been talking about that for a while.
I think that's very worthwhile.
Yeah.
Middlesex Health Center for Behavioral Health has asked for $15,525 to help with social services as well. They provide social services already here. This, I think, would help with that. The Deep River Fire Department has asked for $120,550 to go towards various equipment and turnout gear. The River Cog has asked for $95,250. If you remember, just for folks that don't remember, River Cog is our Council of Governments. It represents, I want to say, 15, maybe 17 towns along the Connecticut River, going up as far as Portland, Cromwell, and down to Old Saybrook and Old Lyme, Clinton as well. Rivercog has asked for all of the towns that it represents for 15% of the county or regional money. And if you remember, when this first was getting distributed, Deep River was allocated $630,000 for our town and $630,000 for our county. Because Connecticut does not utilize county government, our river cogs are the closest thing that we have to that, and they have asked for 15% of that county money to go towards them, and that'll go towards other business type, maybe not business, but they can explain it better, and their application probably does explain it a little bit better, but it's just for them to utilize to help towards recovery or economic development in the area. We are not obligated to give them all of that $92,250. We are only obligated, and I would only recommend that we agree to that number, but only if whatever project they're going to utilize that for is something that Deep River will benefit from. If they want to utilize some of that monies for a new bridge up in Cromwell, that's fine, but not from this. Yeah. So that might not end up at 95,250. That might end up at 50 or whatever it comes. Parks and Recreation, we discussed once before, wants to manage a music festival over the next 3 years. They asked for $75,000. Social services personnel, that's something that I've been advocating for. I'd like to bring in a person for the next 3 years, another full-time person to try and help out with some of the families and the folks that utilize our social services office. I estimated that at about $195,000. That would cover insurance. It would be a full-time role, so that'd be 3 years over, including insurance and all the benefits that go along with a full-time role. The Highway Department, I'm requesting $100,000 to go towards a chipper. We are the only town around that I can think of that does not have a wood chipper as part of our department. And it makes a big difference, especially during storms when we're trying to clear the roads.
With a hurricane coming up and things like that.
Yep. So that's something I'm asking for. The Middlesex Chamber of Commerce is involved with an organization known as Muse. They are based out of Middletown, but they have to do with local businesses and helping with grants and things like that, and also providing a space for folks who are not quite large enough to rent their own space, but need a space to meet and things like that. They have not asked for a specific amount yet, but I'm anticipating that we will hear from them. Other ideas that have not come up is Deep River Housing Authority and the additional affordable housing. We might need to provide some funds for either of those for either expansion or planning purposes. And as I say, I'm anticipating a couple others, but those are all of the applications that we've received thus far. Jane, you have a comment?
Yeah, I find it rather strange that the soup kitchen is asking for 10,000. I understand that if that's all they're asking for, but then I see in the newspaper that they have to have this fund drive while we're giving $75,000 for music festivals. I find that disparity outrageous when we have our Thursday night concerts and we have the muster. I think Deep River is pretty well covered with music. And to me, if somebody is having trouble meeting their heating bills or their grocery bills, especially grocery bills right now, saying to them, you can go to a music festival, when they'd rather have the money to put food on the table. It's like giving somebody a gift certificate to the Copper Beach and for one meal, and what they need is a week's groceries. I just don't understand why $75,000 when we ought to be giving people that need food. And I'm sure that's increased now because the grocery bills are just getting outrageous.
Well, thank you for that comment.
Oh, and
it's
one
certainly-
other thing, isn't there some device whereby people that have been affected by COVID and have trouble meeting their, I know it's in the state, but what about the town for meeting heating bills?
We have an existing program with our community health community.
Are we giving them some of this money?
We have money allocated for social services. We have money allocated for Middlesex Health. And those folks already have a very large amount of money in their account. They don't want to grow it any further than it already is. And they have not requested any. We can certainly have a further conversation about allocating more money for the community health. But we already have a program in place that is pretty well funded already. For heating oil, yep. For all of these
Is there some
programs.
way we can beef up, I mean, are there any statistics that you have about, is there a bigger demand for the food pantry?
I would suggest that the place to go would be to one of their meetings and ask these questions directly to them. I know that during the COVID experience, there certainly was an increase in need. There is still an increase in need, not as much for food and oil, although this year is going to be a difficult winter. We know oil costs are way up, but the demonstrated need has been more for counseling help than it has been for financial help.
And are we funding that sort of?
Yes, that's exactly what I have in here, for another full-time person for 3 years. And hope if we see after 3 years, if it's still necessary, we can budget for it out of our budget. But I put in here to provide additional counseling. And we've got our wonderful Tri-Town Youth Services Bureau that has stepped up considerably as well, so.
Isn't there any way that you can reach out to the food pantry and say,
I communicate with the food pantry every week. But if you want to speak with them about their direct needs, I would suggest that you do that.
well, I think it would be better coming from you saying.
I think that the
you
thing
have-
that for you to do is if you have a question for the community health community, then you speak with them. I'm happy to try and give you overview responses, but I can't give you the details because I don't have the details. if they have a need, they ask me. They have not asked me for funding for this. They've asked for help with counseling. That's where the bigger demand has been in the past year. Go ahead.
What is the total amount of ARPA funds that will be dispersed?
$1,300,000.
Thank you.
And you said you're bringing in an outside consultant to help evaluate this?
No, I mean, to help evaluate with our businesses that have lost money and can
okay.
demonstrate that
I see.
they were adversely affected by COVID. And that really was the bigger part of this ARPA funding was dedicated, or was supposed to be dedicated towards that kind of thing. So
What are next steps then on evaluating all of these requests? Or how do you select? You have
yes,
some kind of
we're going
decision
to,
grid?
once the applications have come in, everybody on the Board of Selectmen will receive them, we'll be able to study them, we'll be able to ask them questions. We can have separate meetings with the applicants to ask them specific questions, probably be similar to our Board of Finance workshops, where we can go through have a meeting with 3 or 4 different applicants, talk about their needs, talk about the priorities of their needs. Like Pandemonium has asked for really monies for 3 different things. What are the priorities in those? What they really focused on? And then make a decision to move that decision forward to Board of Finance. Board of Finance might ask for a similar type thing, and then move from that to the town meeting.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Any questions? Any thoughts?
No, I think it's just important to reiterate that we're not making any decisions tonight. These are the ones that have come to us, and I believe that as the Board of Selectmen, we can, when we go and start officially looking at them, if we feel, or I feel, or Dwayne, or we can adjust numbers up, we can adjust numbers down. We can, as a group, can say, this, we don't think so. We're very preliminarily getting the list together. There are no preconceived decisions that have been made, and those numbers that are requested, again, in talking to those groups or individuals, can be adjusted up. Like you said, Jane, possibly somebody might feel that they need more, but they didn't, I think it's flexible at this point, and we want to try and do the best that we can for the people of the town of Deep River. I mean, and I'll be honest, the town of Deep River, I believe, my opinion is the town of Deep River did very well during the pandemic. You hear a lot of horror stories about communities and whatnot during the pandemic, and we've done a very good job here. I think, and with these funds, we can continue to help those that are in need and those legitimate groups that need some money to do stuff that they don't have. And I just think we have a great opportunity to do good things with it, and we're not going to rush and do anything frivolous.
Yep. Now, an interesting part of that, Jim, is we had spoken, about distributing some of this and dividing it up, and preliminarily we had talked about a 50% going towards capital expenditures, 25% towards social services, 25% towards economic recovery.
Yeah.
Capital, I think I would put towards the infrastructure part. And right now the applications have been such that it's probably going to lean a little bit more towards social services than anything else. And that's fine with me.
Yeah,
that's where it belongs.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we should take advantage of an opportunity to help with some of the capital expenses, like the Historical Society's roofs, or equipment for the fire department, for the police department, and for our own public works. So I think, just based on preliminary review of the applications that have come in thus far, we're probably leaning more towards social services.
As far as the percentage.
As far as the percentage-wise goes, as to the detriment, if you want to use that, that's probably not the right word, but less is going towards capital and more towards social services, which I think is fine.
Have the commitments towards the fire truck and some of the police equipment already been made from the ARPA funds, or is that still under consideration?
The only contribution that we've taken from ARPA was decided at the town meeting in May, was $300,000 towards a radio system, a $500,000 purchase of a radio system for our emergency services, public works, police, fire, and ambulance, so we can all be on the same radio system and all be equipped with the new modern equipment as opposed to radios that are outdated. And more importantly on that, the system itself that we use now is going to, in order to continue to maintain it, it's probably a $2 million project to upgrade all of the equipment necessary to continue to use it. This will be a one-time purchase cost. There's no cost to the system use, and maintenance of the radios will be the only ongoing cost of this. So
we've got roughly $1 million left to play with.
yes, that's right. Yep, that was a long-winded answer. I'm sorry. $300,000. Yeah, that has been dedicated already. Yeah. So we have about $1 million left.
The meetings you're going to have with the 3 selectmen, and you're going to call in like maybe 3 of the people that, or organizations that
That's
want
the
to
thought
come
right
in.
now. Yeah.
Are these going to be open meetings?
Of course they are.
Okay, and so there'll be minutes and stuff if you can't make it.
Of course, there will be Board of Selectmen meetings. Just
Yeah.
Oh, that'll take a long time then.
It won't take that long. I think there are some in here that we don't need to speak to. I don't need to speak to Shoreline Soup Kitchens. I'm aware of that. We don't need to speak to the River Cog. They don't need to come in. We've got an
I mean,
understanding.
the Historical Society, like
Yeah,
Bruce
it's
said,
very
the
clear.
application is
Yeah.
self-explanatory,
So,
so. they're
We'll
probably-
have special
Yeah.
meetings. I don't know that we'll do them at Board of Selectmen meetings. We'll have special meetings where people can come in and speak. Again, if they are so inclined, if they believe that their application speaks well enough, then we can just have these meetings and have these discussions. Anything else, Jim, on Arpa?
No, I have nothing.
Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is discussion of opioid settlement funds. We tabled this from last meeting. Just to give you a history, the Connecticut's Attorney General joined with many other Attorney Generals around the country in a class action lawsuit. I don't know if class action is right, but that's the idea.
More or less,
A
yeah.
lawsuit against a couple of different corporations that manufacture and distribute opioids as part of their medicine. That court came to a settlement called the National Opioid Settlement, and there are communities, every community that signed up for that gets a part of it. At Deep River, based on population and need and all that kind of thing. Deep River is going to be allocated $1,466.76 annually for the duration of this settlement.
Oh, that's an annual thing.
Until the money runs out.
Okay, okay.
It might be biannual. I haven't been told that
Yep.
yet, but
It's
we've
not
received
just-
one. We received one check, and
It's just not one and done, it's
No,
an
it'll
ongoing
be
thing,
more.
okay,
Yep.
all right.
We received that check, and the Tri-Town Youth Services asked me, and I'm going to ask you, and we'll bring it to the Board of Finance to ask them if we would consider directing that money to the Tri-Town Youth Services, specifically for their existing substance abuse prevention efforts. You know, $1,466 isn't going to do much for us as a whole community. What are we going to do with it?
Help them.
And it should go towards what it was from. That was part of the Attorney General's reason for getting into it, is to try and help with the prevention of the substance abuse that's taking place. I think that's a good idea,
Absolutely.
good use for the money, and I'd like to if we can have a motion to bring that to the Board of Finance and ask them to do that tonight. That'd be
I
great.
make a motion that the Board of Selectmen bring to the Board of Finance the $1,466 and how many cents?
76 cents.
76 cents, bring that to the Board of Finance to appropriate it to the youth services.
Okay, I will second that. Any further discussion, any
No.
explanation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Last item on the agenda is tax refunds from the tax collector. This month, we have 5 different refunds that need to go out, totaling $713.61.
I make a motion that we approve the $713.61 in tax refunds.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
And I think the only discussion I have, just maybe that people know, is that these refunds are people that have moved out of town, they've
Overpayments, yeah.
they haven't overpaid, or they've sold a car or stuff
Yeah.
like that. That's what these tax refunds are.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing I like to.
Yeah,
So
thank you, good job. We have a motion?
Yes.
And a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's our agenda. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Did you want to make a comment about Deep River Day or
Oh,
anything?
Deep River Day,
Yeah,
just
just a
how
general-
much fun it was.
I think it was great.
I think it was a very good event. The Historical Society really came out and helped a lot. Joyce, our town's assistant, really went above and beyond to make sure that everything was in place, and that the parade came off without a hitch, and it really did. It was really a fun day, from the road race, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning all the way to the fireworks. It was a
I spent most of my day at the car show,
Yeah,
and there was a ton of people that just wandered up and were looking
Yeah.
at the cars, and I know the Historical Society people are gone, but I think that one day was close to a record as far as attendance.
Oh,
People
yeah.
walking into the Historical Society.
great.
And again, that's Deep River Day.
Yeah.
That's the building that holds
Yeah,
most of Deep River's history, so that's really cool that it was there. And
Yeah.
we hope that we can continue to do the car show there. It's a pretty good draw. I have personal friends that drove down from Boston to come to
yeah,
it.
people came from all over the place.
Another guy drove his old cars from Fall River, Massachusetts.
Wow,
And I was, so it was neat, and the guys from the the Essex Automobile Club, they've lived in Essex their whole life. They didn't know anything about the Historical Society. And while they were there, went inside and they were flabbergasted. They had no idea. They've been in, so it was a really good day.
yeah.
And the parade was fun. We had our parade master. She did a good job.
Parade was a blast. Well, you were at the car show, I was at the dunk tank. And
Yeah,
it
you
was-
wanted me at the dunk tank, but I had to go to the car show.
And that was a lot of fun too. I tell you, a lot of the kids, I was amazed at how good some of our youth can throw a ball.
Yep.
But I'm glad, because we raised a lot of money for the Ambulance Association and for the fire department, so
Nice.
it was a good event. And I didn't, like I said, I spent most of my time at this end of town. From what I understand, there was a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic through the shops. The library, I think, did pretty well with their book sale.
The fireworks were,
And the fireworks were a good show this year.
I could see them from my house, and just, that's physically the setup point for the fireworks was the
Yeah.
closest to my house it's ever been.
Yeah.
It was loud.
It was loud.
It was loud.
The finale was a big one.
My house
Yeah.
was shaking, but
Yeah.
that's all. It's one day for
Well, it was
half an
fun.
hour.
It was fun. Thank you for everyone who
It
came
was
out.
nice to see bunches of kids walking around.
Yeah, it was a
It
fun
really
day.
was. That's what Deep River is. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, it was a
That's
fun-
what
it
Deep
was a
River
really
is.
fun
It's a
day.
good town. It's a fun town.
It was a-
Better than having somebody put a kid on a bike.
It was a different family day, or Deep River Day from what it had been in the past. There was fewer rides and things, but it was more focused on the main street and just.
I think every year it's an evolving.
Yeah.
It's an evolving. It's there's no target. It's a moving target, and we adjust
Yeah,
and
it's
have a
very
good
good.
day. So
Very good.
that's the only thing
All right,
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is the September 2022 regular meeting of the Deep River Board of Finance. Our first item would be our traditional approval of the minutes of July meeting. Do I have anyone who would like to read? Okay.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye. Anyone
Aye.
wish to? I get confused on this. We have a motion to approve it, whether there was a discussion, so excellent, it is approved regardless, okay? Now, the next item would be audience of citizens, and I see Catherine Russell there, but before Catherine, who I call Katie, Katie Russell, and I hope that is acceptable.
It's just fine.
Okay. I need to share with the board, one of the reasons Katie is here, other than being a good citizen. Who is not here tonight is Russ Morris, okay? Russ sent me a letter of resignation dated September the 5th, okay? straight to me. However, it does not become official until it is provided to the town clerk, and he handed that to the town clerk somewhere around September 12th. Russ noted in his note to me that it is for personal reasons that he had to resign immediately. That is all that I know. And all those who are listening, Russ as a person on the board will be missed, and as a contributor to this, what this board does and to the citizens, he will be greatly missed. But I know no more. When the town clerk receives a resignation from a board that has elected members, she has an obligation to send notifications to the two town committees, Republican and Democratic town committee, to ask if they have any suggestions for replacement. And that is where Catherine Katie comes in. Please.
Thank you very much, Bud. I'm here and in my role as Vice Chair of the Republican Town Committee, and we would like to present Peter Knox, and we endorse him as a candidate to fill this open position. I brought his resume here today. He has over 25 years of experience in banking, retail banking and commercial lending as well. He grew up here in his early childhood, was born on Main Street, right where Adams is now. And but as a young adult, he lived in Saybrook, where he served on a couple of civic boards. So he's very civic-minded. You'll see in his resume, he's done about 15 things like that with a heavy-duty financial background. So we probably endorse him and hope you will consider him seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Continuing that conversation, there has been, since Russ resigned, few people have introduced themselves to me, and that's not the right word, but have made a comment that they could be interested in the job. And there are a few that, when we were in the process of replacing Lauren and Jackie, there were a few that had indicated a potential interest. So I offer, in addition to Peter, we have some expressed interest. How would the board like to proceed? If you remember, in our learning, when Laurie resigned and Jackie joined us, we found out that the Board of Finance replaces our own vacancies. Prior to that, we were nurturing the idea that it was a selectman appointment, but it is our selection, our appointment. That person will serve, I guess you and I have practiced this, that person that is appointed to replace Russ will serve until next municipal election, next November. So it would be a one-year appointment, and if they wish to run again, they would need the support of their respective. Does the board want to say anything, want to ask any questions? I suggest the board think about it, think about people, and get back to me, email each other, email Angus. We can all sort of gather these things. Absent anyone stepping forward saying they wish to proceed in a certain fashion, I think that as we find some people who are interested, we should interview them. And the way we will do that is when we set up some appointments, I will send an email out with some preliminary times and ask all of you or any of you who can to come forward. Does that sort of make sense? Does anyone wish to make it any more formal?
Question.
Yes.
Does poly-affiliation, does party affiliation have anything to do with it?
I'm going to repeat what we have repeated over the years, okay?
Okay.
There's a difference between repeating and being a factual statement, okay? We have said that it is a democratic position. That was what we said when Laurie resigned. It was elected by the citizens. Citizens of the town of Deep River elected a Democrat to the Board of Finance, okay? Now, you can then attach to that there is some way that Democrats think that others do not, okay? And so we say those things, right? Certainly we replaced Jackie, who replaced a Democrat. Russ is a Democrat. I was actually chatting, remember we say things. I was chatting with the town clerk to say, and she said, remember, it is a Democratic position. What does that mean? Say, and she said the same silly stuff, I'm sorry. I hint that we're looking for the most qualified person to serve on the board.
Okay, I believe a person is elected by a person's their own cognizance, not their party.
That is,
So-
that would be my,
And
hope
I
that
believe the
what we
best
do.
qualified person, regardless whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat, has nothing to do with it.
That's correct. That would be my.
Because this is not really a politically based board.
That would be,
You know, we don't base this board on politics, so.
so that would be my hope as
So
well,
we're gonna
that we
ask the
find
question.
a capable
Okay.
person regardless of party, so. And that will be for us to determine when we interview these folks. Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts?
I agree with what Bill just said, and I think in other towns, in my experience, they are elected by party affiliation.
Mhm.
If it's a leave from a Republican seat, it's filled by a Republican, a Democratic seat, it's filled by a Democrat. But I think and perhaps I'm giving us more praise, but I think that this board doesn't work that way. I think we work just as citizens of Deep River, and it's not because you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, you work together to do what's best for our town. So I don't have any problem with one or the other, as long as it's a qualified individual.
Now, historically, when I first started it here, it was the head of the particular political party, more or less the Republican chairman of the Republican chairman board, or the head of the Democratic board. They would pick their candidate, and then they would come in and fill the seat.
Correct.
You didn't change that, but you kind of reaffirmed the way it should be, that it's filled by the board, not by the party. Consequently, we fill people that are best qualified, not by the party. And
That's certainly the hope that I have that we will proceed.
that's the hope we have. Okay.
So let's see who our candidates are, and hopefully that will, I mean, yes, it seems absurd to even dance around that we will not pick the best person.
So can you send out the resumes in advance, and it would all be on the same evening or late afternoon or whatever, that we would interview them? Okay,
I think
that
that's
sounds like a good
possible.
plan.
I know how to scan.
Or as close to.
I know how to scan, well, actually, my wife knows how to scan. So
Okay.
anyhow, I have those who have technical skills to be able to do that, so it is, again, I am personally saddened. Russ was a good friend, and I do believe that he has got other things he is doing that will make him happy, so we will be the loss.
I grew up with Russ, went to school together. You know, I've known him forever. He loves music, as we've had discussions, and he'll be sorely missed. I mean, he was a selectman for a while in town, and so he's contributed a lot over the years, and he will be sorely missed.
Yes, he will. And I assume that and I know with certainty that this kind of decision was not made cavalierly.
Is a thank you letter sent out to him for all his years of service? Is that something that we usually do?
I do selectmen, I mean, I don't know, we don't do resolutions, I don't know if selectmen do resolutions.
It's a resolution. It's a thank you letter, I didn't say.
We haven't done that with other people that have left.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the fine line, maybe, you know, because was there a resolution for Lori, you know?
It's actually, I'm sorry to say that it was begun and has not been completed.
Yeah, so,
We have every intention of
it's a good
setting
idea
a
to do it.
resolution for Lori, and I think Russ has certainly served for 7 years, maybe 6 years on this board, so it's certainly a thank you from me will go out to him, as did for Lori.
On Laurie's last night,
But-
she brought in she created a party atmosphere when Russ has left. So, yes.
No, so I think my letter to him will be a thank you for all of the service that he's done on all of the commissions. He resigned from the Community Health Committee.
Correct.
He resigned from this committee, and he's stepped back from all of the things that he's doing for the town right now. So whatever is going on with him, it carries some
I'm
weight.
certain
and
it will.
I hope he's
It will be
okay.
good.
Wishing
It
him
will
best.
be good,
Yeah.
that is correct.
You know, just in as an addendum, you can also request a citation
Mhm.
from either Christine Palm, which would come from the House or from Norm Needleman, which would come from the Senate.
Yep.
And that would be something you just call their aides and say, you know, could the senator or Christine issue a citation for an Eagle Scout, for
Yeah.
someone in the veterans, for, you know, anything that you want
Fighting
to
Eagle
give some praise to.
Sometimes they do that together with your state,
Yes,
state
they
senator.
do.
Yeah.
They're joint citations.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I'll talk to you more about that. I think it would certainly be nice for them. I like the idea of it coming from the town. They worked for the town.
Correct.
So I'd like to get something for that. But
All right, we shall move, and this is a subject we will continue to chat about, but.
the only thing before you go on,
Yes, please.
you had mentioned in your comments about email correspondence back and forth.
Correct.
I just want to point out to be careful about that. You can't make any decisions. Group emails are probably not the greatest things. Just, you know, trading information is okay, but be careful with
And,
how those
and
conversations go.
the town clerk constantly
You know,
reminds me that even communication by email is some may one.
yeah,
So,
this group communication is not a good idea.
You mean you can't notify someone by email?
No, notification is fine, but group communication about something that's leading up to a
I think
decision.
that we should blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I see.
and I try when I do send you information to be general and suggest people withhold any comment. So.
Yeah.
But I do find it productive that if people have information before a meeting, it makes the meeting richer, but we're close. All right, unless anyone wishes to continue the conversation, which we will, Tom, would you take us through the treasurer?
Sure. Hopefully everyone can see the deposit. I spoke to Matt, and said he was sending it out yesterday.
Yep.
And I also have a hard copy here for you too.
Do you have an extra copy?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thanks.
The only thing I did want to make one change, and we'd be on the bottom of the report where it says 7/27/2021. I should have put 9/27/2021, so that amount that's there will be changed to 7,523,924.75. I'm just trying to compare numbers from this report of this month to last year at the same time.
What about the date above it? It says 7/25/22.
That's okay. Yeah, because we didn't have a meeting in
Right.
last month, so. So I'm going to start with our general fund account balances. So if you look at, we have 9,565,169.83 in our general fund accounts. But what I do, I took out the capital improvements borrow amount, and then I went back, if you went back last year and compared the number, so it's a more realistic number because that was the loan that we had been granted for the capital improvements. So we're ahead of last year when we take out take that amount out. We're ahead by about just under $793,000 from last year. Just regarding that capital improvements borrow account that you see there, that loan was opened up on June 8th, 2022. So for $1,425,000. We've used $176,694.88 in the last 2 months. We used let's see, July, we used $27,966.02, and this last month we used $148,228.86. And I saw there was an invoice dated 8/18/2022 for $150,000. That was a progress payment due on the pumper contract. So that's kind of where those monies came from. And we do earn interest on that account too, the deposit account that we have, 0.6%, 60 basis points. Then for wire transfers, I've made 5 wire transfers in the last couple of months. If I go from July 25th to August 23rd, I made 3 wire transfers. On July 26th, one for $800,000. July 29th, one for $2 million. On August 4th, $900,000. So those three combined equal $3,700,000. So that actually went from Citizens Bank General Fund to Liberty Bank, our municipal savings, our municipal sweep money market account, where we get 0.65% interest. But those were really monies that came in from tax revenues to Kate, in the tax collector's office. And then I made two in the last month. I made two transfers. On September 6th, one for $1.2 million, and September 26th, one for $300,000. So those two combined, $1,500,000. They went from Liberty Bank Money Market to Citizens Bank General Fund because they're actually they cover some accounts payables for us. So, and then the 5 transfers, it came to $5,200,000. So then if you look at the total balances on the bottom, the $11,292,018.26. With that one, I took away the capital improvement amount. I took away the ARP funds and compared it to last year, where we didn't have the capital improvement amount, but we did have ARP funds, so I subtracted that. So we're about $573,882 ahead of last year, if you take all that into consideration. Regarding the ARP funds, the American Rescue Plan Act, total to be received is $1,300,363. On July 14th, 2021, we received $657,454.22. We just received another payment on August 16th for $225,953.89. So that brings our total up from those two installments that we received to $883,408.11. So we're still owed $416,954.89. I thought we were going to just get 2 installments. But
that's what I thought too.
Yeah. But so I was a little surprised when I just saw the $225. And we do get interest on that money. And from July 26th to present, we've earned $549.28. And then we did receive our town aid road monies on September 23rd, $98,530.60. Our education equalization grant monies, the ECS monies, for this fiscal year, we're due $1,671,457. So our first installment of that will come at the end of October. We'll receive a quarter of that amount. So $417,864 will come at the end of October. We'll get another quarter at the end of January 2023, and then we'll get half of that amount at the end of April 2023, which will bring us up to our toward the end of our fiscal year. So we'll get $835,728 at that time. Capital improvement borrow from Dime Bank. That was again originally for $1,425,000. That loan opened 6/8/2022. It's a 15-year term. It's a fixed rate of 3.250%. The annual principal payment is $95,000, and the first payment was paid on August 15th. It was $103,104.69. A principal of $95,000, interest of $8,104.69. That's a partial interest payment. And then our next interest payment will be due February 15th for $21,612.50. So our principal balance now with that one payment that we made is down to $1,330,000. So we make one principal payment and 2 interest payments with that loan. And then the Deep River Elementary School boiler payment. That's another loan that was taken out July 29th, 2016. That was also with Dime Bank as well as the capital improvement borrow. We made principal payments. It was originally for $200,000 for 7 years, and the principal balance, the principal payment comes to $28,571 a year. So we just made our 6th payment, and then the final payment will be due next year on July 29th, 2023. for $28,574, and then that will be paid in full. So that's pretty much what I have.
So Tommy, remind me, you said it, you said a lot of numbers. And I got
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Capital improvement borrow.
Yes.
When you made those payments, were they all for status payments on the fire truck?
See, I'm not sure with that 27,966, that first disbursements we made on that.
Was that the legal fees? I thought we also paid legal fees
Legal fees.
out of that
Okay.
fund. Okay,
All right.
that makes sense. Okay. And the next payment was a status payment? Is that a good word?
That
Status?
was for $150,000 for the progress payment
It's a progress
on
That makes
the
sense.
comfort contract.
Okay. How did you do it? Did you cut the check out of the capital improvement, or did you move it to the general fund? So how did we pay for the fire truck out of the general fund?
Generally, everything moves through the general.
That would make sense.
fund.
That's good. Okay. And remind me, we used to have $300-some thousand in capital non-recurrent. We said we were going to take a substantial portion of that and move it into the general fund to begin to make payments. That is why we were down to 26,000.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yes,
That is fine.
exactly right.
All right. Okay. And it is, and you have done fine, and we should all be curious, that you compare prior year cash balance to this balance. And we are more cash than we had in prior years. That is good. We should, more cash is good.
Well, again, I'm
There are
just
so many stories
Because
that
if
take
you look,
place in
if
all
you
that
look at
cash.
this is about the highest total we've had, 11,292,000 I can remember.
Yeah.
But I think, again, if you're taking away the capital improvement and the ARP funds to make it more realistic, and that's how I'm comparing last year to this year. So, and
That was good.
but in every
You're also gotta
instance,
remember, we're early.
we're still ahead.
We're early in the year still.
Yeah.
And, our expenses are up this year too, so we'll see that. We should be higher now than we were last year, because our expenses are gonna be higher this year than we were.
So we've been, that's correct. Cool. All right. Okay, questions for Tom? Comments for Tom? Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, Angus, it's your turn. Do you want me to share that and talk about the auditors, or do you want to talk about some other stuff first?
I do want to talk about a couple of other things first. One, I need to ask you guys to make a vote tonight. Board of Selectmen spoke earlier about the national opioid settlement and the distribution of that settlement to communities around the country. Briefly, our Connecticut's Attorney General participated with other Attorney Generals from around the country in a lawsuit against companies that were manufacturing drugs that contain opioids and the distribution of those drugs through doctors and all the things that lead up to. That lawsuit was settled, and a certain amount of money nationally is going to be distributed to all the communities that signed on for it. Deep River just got our first payment, and I think they're going to be annual, but they may be biannual, I'm not sure. We just received our first payment of $1,466.76. Our Attorney General certainly, and our Board of Selectmen agree that this money should be directed towards some sort of substance abuse programs. What we already have in place here in Deep River, Chester, and Essex is the Tri-Town Youth Services. They've got an existing program of substance abuse prevention and efforts. The Board of Selectmen voted today to ask you if we could direct this $1,466.76 to the Tri-Town Youth Services to put towards their existing substance abuse programs. So that's what we're asking.
And that money that comes in would be incremental to what we give them already?
Yes, separate from
to-
that. Separate from that. It comes from the feds to us. We, as a community, have that Tri-Town Youth Services is our drug prevention focus group, and they've got a program that's going that could certainly utilize additional funding, while this is not a lot of money, combined with Chester's and Essex's, it will add up to 5,000 or so. And,
Will Chester and Essex be doing the same?
yeah. Well, I don't know if they have or not, but I know that the boards of selectmen have said that they were going to.
The monies that we give to them currently, does it subsidize these kind of programs?
Partly. Not all. Most of our, a good portion of the funding that we give to Tri-Town is just towards their, their operation. This is part of their operations. And this actually, some of this funds will go towards their grant request. They're in the process of writing a grant application. They are just finishing a 10-year grant from the federal government. I can't remember how much it was. It was millions, a couple $1 million to put towards substance abuse prevention. And this will go into that same pot.
Board of Finance, let's say,
I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Finance take that money and any future money and give it to the Tri-Town for that program, as long as the Tri-Town continues that program.
Second, anyone have second that motion?
Second.
Second. What do we do now? I don't get confused.
Discussion.
People always get mad at me when I don't do it. Do we say, we've got a first and second, do we have a discussion?
Yes.
Do we vote? Okay, cool. Does anyone wish to discuss it?
Yes. So that's good, strictly for for children through teenage years, I assume. For the most part.
I don't know the details of their abuse program, obviously, or not obviously, but it is focused on youth. But remember, their full name is not Tri-Town Youth Services, their full name is Tri-Town Youth and Family Services. So I don't
I would just be
believe, I don't,
interested
yeah.
if they were addressing young adults.
I
And I realize it's $1,400, but I do worry about the young adults as well.
Absolutely,
So
no,
I
this is.
didn't know if you knew.
I think
No,
that's a
it
good
goes,
point, that
it goes
youth
right up to,
family.
yeah,
Yeah.
it goes right. I know that they work with the high school, with kids
Yes.
all the way from elementary school up to the high school. So, and I assume that they continue with families after that, if need be.
Do you know what kind of programs they run? Is it?
I know what kind of programs they used to run because I used to be on that board. I am very glad that those programs have evolved to such a way that they're more education-based than they used to. It used to be more punishment-based. And I'm not sure that that's the right direction to prevent substance abuse. I think education is the way to go, and that's where they're focusing.
And this will be incremental to their program.
Yes,
As
this-
opposed to going into their operating.
This is on top of it.
This is, what we've asked for is for this to be directed to that program, not into their operating budget, but towards that program.
Yeah.
And I think Bill's
I
motion
think
was
that's Bill.
similar.
Yep.
All those in favor of whatever the dollar amount so stated, forwarding over to the Tri-Town to be part of a fund to support do we have a special name for the fund, or it's just?
It's just.
Substance abuse?
It's their existing substance abuse prevention programs.
Okay. All those in favor?
I,
All right, done.
More, there's more.
It's still batting.
Sorry about that. Batter up. There's a foul ball. No, that was a hit. So next at bat. Let's see. Just for your information, we are going to see I know we all just acted the past month in the town meeting to purchase a new police car. Our second oldest car, or youngest car, actually, this is why we're doing this, has had some substantial damage to their engine. I want to say lifters, but I don't know cars well enough to be able to say. But it's a $6,000 repair. That, because of the age of that car, I think it's important that we repair it. But that's going, just to give you a heads up, that's going to push our our police maintenance, equipment maintenance budget. It's going to put it'll probably blow it. I haven't looked to see exactly what we budgeted, but I think it was around $6,000. So that's gonna push
We've
that.
incurred about 6,000 already,
Yeah.
so I assume this is incremental to what we've already
Oh,
incurred.
yeah, so this is gonna push that. But we have one newer car now, we will have another newer car. This will be our third oldest car, but it's the car that's driven by our full-time officer. So it's important, I think, that we repair it. So we're
Will
doing
you
that.
put the new full-time officer into the new car?
Maybe you want to go.
He was.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was. We were given the car from Wayland. That replaced the oldest car, the guy who was driving. That was our next senior in officer. This car, I believe, is going to be driven by Officer Ward or Wisner. Officer Wisner, I think, is driving the oldest car that's going to be replaced. And along those lines, we are planning on auctioning both of the cars, the spares that we have. Although I just was made aware, and I haven't spoken about this with other selectmen yet, or other boards yet, other towns, but our animal control officer out of Essex is in need of a vehicle, another vehicle. I'm not sure that our old police car will satisfy that need, but we're gonna we don't get a whole lot of money when we auction those off.
All right.
So I was considering donating that car towards that sort of purpose if it satisfies the need. So
both of those old cars are sedans.
yeah,
They're not like
No.
an Explorer or anything like that, which are probably more fitting.
it would certainly be much
But
more appropriate,
If they
right?
don't have anything.
But Essex provided the old car.
Yeah.
And if we're not using it, if they can take the seat out and outfit it so that it
Make it dog-proof.
Make it dog-proof, or
Yeah.
whatever they do.
Dog-friendly, whatever, yeah.
So that's the police car situation. ARPA, just to give you a heads up, we, at the Board of Selectmen, we just reviewed all of the applications that we've had thus far. If you are inclined, I can go into my office and get that list for you. If you're not inclined, you will get it shortly. My intent is we still are having people make applications. I would like very much to put notice out that we will continue to accept applications up until November. And in November, we will begin the decision-making process of what to move forward to the town.
We use the word people. I
Yeah.
assume you mean organizations.
Organizations,
or-
yes, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and an
If I said
individual
folks.
Yeah.
asks
Nope.
for money.
Nope, not yet. Well, that's not true, but they have not formally requested anything, so.
So how many have you gotten so far? Off the top of your head?
Top of my head is a dozen.
Yeah, that 10 or
A dozen or
Yeah.
a dozen?
dozen.
A dozen, yeah,
Okay.
requests.
How many of them are capital?
Not as many as I had hoped. But I would suggest that the capital expense from the town's perspective is the public works. We need a wood chipper. We have never had one. We have to rent them when we need them, or pay someone to chip wood after storms and things like that. It's very cumbersome for us during storms when we're doing cleanup from storms or cleanup in the springtime. So we need that. That's about $100,000. The fire department has requested $120,000 and change for gear and things like that. And the police department has asked for another car. Those are just requests.
And are we still going along the lines, and I can't remember how you broke it out, with social services?
Yep, we spoke about that briefly at the Selectmen's, Board of Selectmen's meeting. We had discussed about 50% going towards capital, 25% for social services, 25% for economic development. It appears as if it is leaning a little bit higher towards social services and a little bit lower for capital.
Were some of those money supposed to be used primarily for like businesses that lost money during the COVID?
That's a good question, Tom, and that is one of the things that we're waiting on. I'm working with
So
a
we
fellow.
haven't gotten any requests to...
We've had one or two, but I want to work with this fellow that I'm trying to communicate with who has run programs like that for businesses, grant programs for businesses for other communities, Old Lyme being the closest. I'd like very much to work with him because he's independent of the town. He would be an independent contractor who would come in to run this program, manage the program, and ensure that there is no it was completely impartial.
Right.
Thank you for that.
that'd be great.
And we'd like to set that up. And I'm using Old Lyme as the model for that because they did a nice little program. It was not a substantial amount of money, but it was appreciated and it's certainly worthwhile. But to the meat of your question, was this money supposed to be used for that? In the initial offerings, that's how it was described. But in its actual final rules, no. We could use it all for capital if we wanted to. We could use it all for whatever the town decides to use it for.
As long as it meets
As long as it meets the
those criteria,
Yep. Yep.
'Cause I know we were very hesitant to do anything.
Well, that's why we waited as long as we waited.
The rules
Yeah.
were determined.
Yeah.
And when do those monies have to be actually dispersed, totally
I
dispersed?
think we've got another 3 years to go.
Yeah.
And who ultimately makes the decision on where the money is going?
The town.
The town as a whole?
It'll go to
Town
town
meeting.
meeting.
The process
So
will
they'll
be,
receive all of the applications?
yep.
Yeah.
The applications are coming through the first selectman's office.
Mhm.
The Board of Selectmen will make a decision, will review those, once they're done, we'll review those and forward through to the Board of Finance, our decisions. You will review them as well, make your decision to move forward to the town, for town meeting, for the town to decide. There will be a lot of discussion about each one of these things, but the ultimate decision is the townspeople. Some towns have formed committees.
I know
A lot.
O-Line does have a committee.
Old Lyme does have a committee. Lots of towns have not. In my meetings with first selectmen in our COG mostly, but also at some of the state CCM meetings, is the committees, most of the first selectmen are a little bit distressed that the committee, once you put it, the committees are just, it's like herding cats kind of thing, So I think that this is the most efficient and really the most open way for us to do this, is just the Board of Selectmen will make some decisions, bring it to the Board of Finance will make decisions, and then the town will make decisions. And that really falls into place with exactly what these rules are. This money is to be spent the same way that we spend our regular budget, and that is how we do it, so.
I think that is going to be a difficult conversation, and the reason I ask, should we have a special Board of Finance meeting to just discuss that, as opposed to intermingling it with
Yep.
other subjects?
That's precisely what we just talked about, and if we want to, we can do a joint Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen meetings. I think there will be more than one. I think there might be 2 before we bring it to town meeting. But I would like very much to have this in front of the town in January, February at the latest.
February, okay.
From what I've read about and heard about towns trying to decide what to do with this money, there's a great amount of contention.
There is,
And
yep.
disagreement over where it should go and what it should be done with it. And so if it goes to the selectmen and then to the Board of Finance, it's already been filtered through.
Yeah, it's like a 3-step process.
So is that going to be a procedure that will generate discord?
Only partially tongue-in-cheek, I don't think there are too many decisions like this that are not going to do that. It's just where we live. It's just where we live right now.
Well,
And I don't mean where we live, Deep River. I mean that's the way things
Tone of
are.
the town.
That's the tone of that's the tone of the state. That's the tone of the nation.
Yeah.
But I think that we should expect that there will be some arguments about some of these decisions, but that's okay. The conversation needs to take place. One of the things I'm going to miss about Russ is he oftentimes argued against what the Board of Selectmen were bringing forward.
Mhm.
And didn't always vote that way, but argued it. And it's good to have these conversations. Those are important parts of the decision-making process. I know that towns have had things voted down, good things have been voted down, you know, emergency generators have been voted down because the town meeting didn't like the process or didn't like something about it. And then it came back and got approved, but it has to get in front of the town somehow. I think this is the best way to do it, and I have not had anybody disagree with that.
So are we gonna be waiting for all the monies to come in, and then is this gonna be done
No,
in
some of
one
the-
shot, or is it gonna be?
I think it depends on the requests, right? Some of the requests have been for incremental. Like
Yeah.
my request, one of my requests is a second full-time social, not a second full-time, but making our social services person full-time for the next 3 years, so that we can provide the social services that are really seem to be the biggest demand right now. Food and fuel, while that demand is up, the bigger demand right now is for other services like counseling and things like that. So that's where I'd like to put a good portion. I'd like to set aside a salary for 3 years for someone to be in that office every day as opposed to just 2 days a week. So that'll be one of the requests.
Okay, and that to be scheduled, and it does seem like.
It is taking longer than-
It should be, as you mentioned, yeah.
It has taken longer than I had hoped, but we are still getting requests, and I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity.
And it is not the perfect time, but the longer time does the need for substitute relief from those businesses that lost.
I think that the businesses that lost, we didn't lose any businesses directly due to COVID. But we did have businesses that suffered considerably. And this is, the longer we get away from that, I think your question is there still a need?
Correct.
That's for the town to decide. I think there is.
Or those businesses decide
Or those-
if they
yeah.
want to ask for the money too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that
There's
no
been
one
other
has come
funds out
forward,
there
to be
for
quite honest.
businesses.
There have been, yeah.
State funds and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
there have been, but not everybody was able to take advantage of that. I've spoken to a couple of our restaurants in town. They were very frustrated because there was money specifically set aside by the federal government for restaurants, and that ran out before they got halfway through the application process. So, and we're not going to have a whole heck of a lot, but I think a little bit is appropriate.
Okay.
And they're gonna have to, it's not just make an application, they're gonna have to satisfy certain requirements, that, document how much did you lose? How did you, why did you lose it and all that kind of thing.
It all makes sense. You have someone, I guess if there was an addendum, my question, we should move quicker on that rather than.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I don't know what that means, other than catch and phrase.
Hurry up.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, hurry up.
if
Hurry
we
up
were-
and put it on the, yeah.
If we had that in place already, I would, there are some of these that I would like to move through a little bit quicker. Shoreline Soup Kitchen is waiting for $10,000 for a refrigerator truck. I don't think it's holding them up, but it would be nice to get that done.
Okay, good.
The one last thing that I want to talk about, and does not require action tonight, but will require action, I think, is, you may have just read about, Deep River was awarded a steep grant for $433,000 to go towards our parks. Mostly towards the infrastructure of the parks, not the playgrounds, but the restrooms, the gazebos, and things like that. Specifically for Platwood Park, and if we can do, because that bathroom is in desperate need of repair, and it also is not handicap accessible, so we need to upgrade that. That $433,000 requires a $100,000 supplement from the town. So in order to do that, we've got to go to town meeting. I think next month I will ask you guys to move that to town meeting. we'll have a better idea of what our surplus is. I think we've got a good idea that we will have the money to do this. If we take this steep grant of $433,000 plus the $325,000 of the state bonding committee, also dedicated to our parks, we will have received $750 some odd thousand from the state towards our parks upgrades for a contribution from the town of $100,000. I think that's a good deal, and I think we should take advantage of it.
And none of it can go towards playground equipment?
Playground equipment.
Oh, I thought you said it was not.
No,
Yeah.
the state bonding committee is for playground, not just equipment, but playgrounds.
Okay.
So we can work on the beach, we can get the volleyball court resanded, whatever we need to do for that. We can do other things in the parks. The
Elementary
steep,
school as well?
Yes.
at the elementary school and the
Okay, 'cause I know
parks.
that they
Yep.
We're talking about needing new equipment.
Yep.
Okay.
The steep grant is specific to buildings and, I guess it's a building too, but I call it a gazebo, but whatever the covered area is.
Pavilion.
Pavilion, thank you. And those are really, I'm astounded. I thought the request for 400 was gonna cover both parks, but it's really only gonna cover one. So, there might be some remaining funds that we can upgrade the look. Devitt is not in as bad shape as far as the building goes. I think with just some dressing up, it might be okay. But I'm very excited actually about the opportunity that we have to really get our parks in really great shape. So.
We have a prior steep grant that was going to provide us signs, computers, that is still.
Well,
sitting
no,
there
we've
waiting
gone,
for us, or-
we just finished our request for proposals for computers, and that'll be starting soon. We are working with the two sign companies in town to put proposals together for the signage around town. And the equipment around town, I have not been able to get a proposal for it, so I'm going further for that, so.
There was initially the assumption, the requirement that we match that with like 50,000. Is that still to be true?
I don't know the numbers on that. There was some match on that.
There was some match.
I don't know that.
Are all those programs, or both of those programs, whatever you want to do, require the town to put out the money and we get reimbursed, or will we get the money first?
Reimbursed.
Which is the way most of them are. For instance, I assume we put out most of the money for the roof, that we will get the elementary
Yes,
school roof.
yep, exactly.
And just picking up on Tom's discussion where he was kind enough to compare, here's the money we used to have, here's the money we now have, okay? We put out a lot of money that we will be reimbursed for, so
Yeah.
it's a good conversation, but it's a confusing conversation.
Yep.
All right, excellent, good.
No, that roof actually was just finished yesterday. So we should not have any more roof conversations for about 20 years. At the library.
Yeah.
Or at the school, right?
Those who come after us, we'll talk about roofs, very good, very good.
So we
the roof
did-
while kids were in there? I thought that was always.
No, the kids didn't have school yesterday.
They finished
They did it in one day?
No, they did it Saturday and finished it yesterday.
Wow.
I'm assuming they finished it because we got our bill. So, there was another, just FYI, the fire department assessment has been, the draft has been sent to us for review. We will be commenting on that. I think we're gonna try to set up a meeting for interested parties to speak about that sometime in the next week or so.
Is that the assessment, the need and want?
That is the needs assessment, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We have contracted with Deborah Millardo out of Middletown to do our salary study. That's beginning. And we have a conversation that Bud and I had with our auditors, or if we want to call them accountants,
Auditors are good.
about creating a capital non-recurring fund And taking all of these monies, similar to my example for that, and my explanation of that would be all of the money that we just borrowed towards capital expenditures this past year. All of that would go into this capital fund. But even more important to that, we can, if we have that fund, we can actually budget for that and have a place for it, which is, I think, a much better way to do things, to budget, than we have been doing. And for example, in the past, the carnival, the Park and Rec through, would raise $15,000 a year. And that was supposed to go towards new playground or something. That never went into a fund, it just went into the general fund, and we had to remember that that was money that they raised. With this capital expenditure, or non-recurring fund, we can budget for capital without having a specific item. So we could say every year, we're gonna put $50,000 away this year because we have that money to do, and put it into the capital non-recurring, and as that grows, we can just reach to that fund as opposed to having to go to borrow or to do other things. And Bud can probably explain things a lot better than I can, but that's my thinking on it.
In a form of a supplement to it, I guess to say, the auditors, the state law allows for the creation of a capital fund. But we have a capital fund, say, okay. Well, they say you do, but it lives by simple practice. I give John Bauer credit for creating a capital fund, but if you listen to Greg Alexander, he used it when he was chairman. So we had capital funds by practice. The auditors want to set us up consistent, want us to have an ordinance. We will go to the town will approve this, and that ordinance will be consistent with what state law says capital funds can do. It will give us more authority, and we'll be very specific on what we're doing. I was resistant. Angus is phrasing it in the positive. It will change the way we do things. And I'm older than Angus, so I get resistant to doing things differently. But we will get through it. But I'll give you an example of where the issue is. Last year's budget, the budget is being audited. We asked the town to approve fire truck, which we should pause for a second. We're paying money for the money we borrowed for that fire truck, and we have not served it. Keep that off the table. For $500,000, how much the money to buy communication equipment, to buy breathing apparatus, all the things we asked the town to do, we haven't gotten either started or done. The town approved that in a budget a year ago. Auditors are going to close it down. It's over. You didn't spend the money. It goes into your surplus. If you want to spend it, you have an obligation to ask the town to allow you to spend it in this year's budget. But if we use this capital fund, that authority that was given to us last year can move to the capital fund. And I thought that was rather appealing.
I like that.
And we don't have to keep asking for it. So that made me happier. But so next, well, the auditors have given us some words. Angus will work with the town attorney to actually write that up. We will look at that at next month's meeting. We will decide, yes, we will send it to a town meeting, ask for authority. Hopefully I will have better numbers. We will do that sometime in November or something. But we, the Board of Finance, will have to move. Audit will not be done yet, which gives the flexibility to move projects that were approved last year into this capital fund, including the funding or the financings that are accompanying. So it is a cleaner way, makes more sense, and we will be learning as we go forward.
What I thought I heard you, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Is that we could also put $50,000 a year into this.
Yes.
Without it being earmarked for something. I totally support that idea, but I feel like that's a direct conflict to what you had said a few months ago when we took $300,000 out of the non-recurring fund because you didn't think that today's taxpayers should pay for something in the future.
That's my opinion.
So,
Yeah,
sort
I
of,
think we have a little bit different thinking on that.
okay.
Yes.
I do think that planning and having that money, maybe we just say, okay, we're gonna plan towards a fire truck. Or something that we know is going to come up in 15 years, and it's going to cost this much. A great example is our, a much smaller, shorter term, but every 4 or 5 years, we need to pay, this year, this next time, it's gonna be upwards of $100,000 to have our reval done. We set aside $25,000 a year for 4 years. In our memory, this can go into that fund. So if we know what it's going for, then we budget for it. And I think it's a good way to go. We'll have much more discussion about how we fund it.
And yes, it is a better way to go. We could have done all those things already. We could
Yes,
have
that's
spent
right.
money on, we could have put those money into a capital fund.
Yeah.
We could have done a lot of these kind of things, but yes, we will have a tool that gives it more authority to do these kinds of things, have these kind of conversations. But yes, I do not care for asking current people to pay for something that people 20 years from now will use. But that is my opinion, and we will talk about it.
No, and I don't disagree in principle with that. I actually like that thinking when we.
So next month, we will see a resolution to send to the town, and we will hopefully have some numbers to begin to provide to us, and we will have a new tool that we will use.
Yeah.
This capital non-recurring fund that we have here, actually that money was supposed to be going toward a purchase of a fire truck.
And you took some of it out to do it, Tony. There's still 26 left.
Yeah.
But what,
I'm just saying,
that was my initial,
It was,
I have
it was sitting there for
quite a while.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. It was my, we have a capital fund. Why do I have to go to a town meeting and get more complicated? It has more, it's consistent with the state statutes, gives them more comfort and gives us the ability to say this is what a capital fund's doing, other than the practices that we've always assumed. So
I think that was, what you just said is really where the auditors are pushing from, is it makes us consistent with statute in reality, not just in practice. Yeah.
and we will have the authority, this board will have to move monies back and forth. So when the town says, yes, you can spend that kind of money, we will have to move that money into a capital fund.
Yep.
If we overfund it, we'll have to move it back. So it will add a little bit of excitement to our life, but it is the tools that our other towns are using. So,
And it's in the capital fund earmarked for that specific purchase.
That is one, yes. As Jackie and Angus were saying, we can move money into this without a purpose. We can do that now. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So if we're asking the town to vote on something, and they vote on an expenditure, and then we take that money.
Town won't vote on the expenditure. Town
That
will
we
vote
can
on improvement.
buy-
We will vote on expenditures.
And then that money goes into the capital funds. We are obligated to spend that money on whatever it was that the town authorized, the up to $60,000 for a new car or whatever.
But also, a capital non-recurring could be, we need to replace the roof in 20 years on the elementary school. So we're gonna put $10,000 a year for the next 20 years.
But we know
Into
that's
it.
what it's there
Correct.
for.
But you just, so it's not such a big impact 20 years from now.
Maybe.
And there's agreements, disagreements on that as well.
Maybe. Don't get too caught up on that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Can you imagine,
Just say, just say.
the accounting nightmare? That we set $10,000 aside for a roof in 20 years. We set $10,000 aside for a new car.
I was
We
just
set
example.
$10,000 aside for this. The nightmare that our accounting will have to do.
Well, we're doing
I'm
it.
just resisting.
We're doing it to a point,
Right.
for reevaluation and so on.
We're doing it to a point.
I used a roof as an example.
Correct, but yes. And one of the things that troubles us, is we put that money aside and we just, thank God we're all here, that we remember we put those monies aside. And we'll take it out of the general fund. when the
It's
time
remarkable, because I don't remember what it did yesterday.
comes. Same with, and to Angus's point, the Recreation thinks they put money aside. We think we have a lot of money in the general fund. And then they come in and ask for it, we cop an attitude. Anyhow, yes.
No, I remember they did that. But I remember them putting it aside also.
Yeah, no one ever told us you put it aside, we spent it. But yes, all those kinds of things. And hopefully we can do something. We've had the same conversation about police, fire trucks and police cars and that type of thing. So it is a tool we will use. Hopefully well. Okay. Angus, if that takes care of selectmen's, I suggest that we turn to the financials that are in front of you and.
Can I ask one more question before
Oh,
we get into
absolutely.
that?
Absolutely.
Angus, you said this Deb Millard has started for evaluation.
We just contacted her, yeah.
She's not
We need to provide her with some
Yeah,
information.
red
So we
coat.
start.
And they will let us know
Like
when
what?
she's.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Do you know the guy?
She anticipates
Do you
a
know?
December
Do you know
completion,
him?
and then we'll start talking. It's actually perfect
Yeah.
timing for next year's budget,
Mhm.
or if we want to do anything in the middle of the year to change things.
Great, unless anyone wants to go to revenues, let's go to expenditures. Remember, these expenditures are July, August, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks of September. But let's assume they were through the end of September. September is the third month, so I suggest we should have, if we budgeted straight line, we've spent about 25%, so we should look at things that are more different than 75% remaining. So, and if you looked at Selectmen, it looks like, Angus, you're using a lot of engineering, surprisingly a lot of engineering out on budget, but that's more than you usually use?
Oh, we are using a lot, mostly with the closure of the.
Oh, the
Capping.
calendar capping, good, excellent. Elections, we had a primary, so it is right that you would expect to see some of those dollars down, okay? Anyone else have, I'm just flipping through pages here. Town clerk, all seems to be good. Board of Finance, we're very conservative, haven't spent a penny. Assessor, everything seems fine, she seems to be traveling auto a bit. Tax collector, her assistant, if you remember, we reduced the assistant salary. Assistant has been in here July, August, and is still here, although I think he is back at school, so all is good there. Just for fun, Angus, what's going on with the accounting and website software? That's we're down to 41%. Is that a contract?
That's contract, that's, yeah.
Okay. Front end contract, okay.
Yep.
All right, anyone else have any, we'll let it go, most of it go. And if you're down on police on page 2, this is the subject we have, we budgeted $30,000, well, let's look at maintenance first. We budgeted $10,000 for maintenance. We have spent 3, we have 6 left, and Angus sort of indicated that we're going to use at least that 6. That number will go, certainly we should expect it to go negative as the year goes on.
I expect, I certainly hope not. We will have 3 cars that are either new or close to new.
Oh, I shouldn't be just normal maintenance.
Certainly hope
But
not,
okay,
but,
that's good.
yeah.
And funded police, we budgeted 30 for expenses, we budgeted 40 for revenues, but there looks like there has been a substantial amount of activity during the summer for police work.
Yeah, you know, a lot of that goes to tree work or road work when they're out doing that.
And is it seasonal? Is that that must be a seasonal task?
For the most part.
Okay.
For the most part, but remember that also brings in a lot of revenue. Much more revenue than we spend.
Everyone, again, I'm zipping through looking for my sort of indicator, but everything seems to be relatively
So far, so good.
good. If anyone has anyone just holler out if you wish to comment on it. Let's talk about something. Park and Rec, we would expect Park and Rec to have spent their summer program dollars, and they have their program salaries and program salaries. I was a little intrigued when we looked at revenues that I didn't see an increase in revenues. But wonder if that would have been charged, would that have gone to last year? The people signed up for day camp, would it have gone into last year's revenue? Or was our last year?
No, well, no, because that was after July. They didn't start, well, they did start a couple weeks early this year, but.
Because when we look at the revenues, it just seems awfully low. Okay.
Yeah, well, remember, basketball program is just getting started, and that's a big revenue generator.
I would have thought camp would have been the generator. Okay.
Camp was an off year too. We did not have as many campers as usual.
Okay. And political subdivisions, we make most of those payments, all of those payments for all Democrats in July. They when they fiscal year. The only one is sort of a miscellaneous. There was the public service agencies which come in over the year. Let's look at redemption of debt. This is a repeat of what Tom talked about. The new debt, which is $119,384. The first payment was due in July, and in July we paid interest and the full year's principal. It's an odd pattern, at least one we're not used to, but it is the pattern we agreed to. In February we will pay the interest only of $9,000. I thought it was an odd pattern, but
just FYI, there are two lines here, new debt and boiler project that I've got questions about that I will get answers for.
we should change the term to new debt, of new debt to, I don't know what we'll change it to, but we should change it to something, so,
Yeah.
And if you don't know
And
what
that's interesting,
the debt
the,
is, you don't
the
know
boiler,
what debt is.
we budgeted 29 and we paid
Yeah.
50.
Yeah, no, that's one of the questions. My hope is that was just something that something was.
Because that boiler has been with us for a while, it should not
Something
have
was
taken by
logged.
surprise.
I think something was logged incorrectly.
Yeah.
'Cause
Okay.
There's no reason for us to have paid $20,000 more than we owe.
And you can see none of our, we have not done any of our planned capital, at least there are no expenses to date. And if you glance at your revenues, you will see that revenues are coming in very well. In July, people pay half of their property taxes, all of their car taxes. So certainly we should have collected more than 50%, and 44% seems logical. Note the property taxes in arrears, we budgeted 120, we received to date 64, so that again is going well. There are sadly a few houses we have had to send to, what is the proper term? Do we send it to foreclosure or tax sale? There will be some fairly substantial dollars coming in too. So, the other I point out to you is building permits, which came in very generous last year. We budgeted 50, we've collected 28, almost $29,000. People are still putting additions on the side of their house, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this year will be down from last, but it's still been a very good summer.
Yeah, very good. And
Conveyance taxes, I expect, is gonna be up.
And Johnny, I assume that interest rates, I saw interest rates on your sheet have increased on what we're collecting. So I assume that your interest that you are earning on our large cash should be a little bit higher than what we budgeted.
Yeah, I really think that interest rates are probably will be going up a little bit too.
So they just increased interest rates, a week ago or something. Are the ones that you showed us on your, are they reflective of that most recent increase in interest rates?
That was a couple months ago.
Oh, these are a couple months
So
ago.
I mean, I know,
How quickly, when the Federal Reserve increases interest rates, or the short end, do you see an increase in? And the banks do that automatically, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to ask, petition.
You know, it's with Liberty, they usually call me and they say, well, we're going to increase your rates, so I'm going to call them this time and see what's happening, especially with the feds going up.
Is that a negotiated conversation, or do they say, we're going to raise your rates by 5 basis points, and you say, how about 10? I mean, is it negotiated? Is there different clients who get different rates?
I've tried that before, but yeah. Especially when it actually was going on a downward trend, so I was trying to keep everything as high as I could. But yeah, there's a reason to call them now, because the Fed's, again, the Fed's going up at, 0.75%.
Yeah, that's good.
So, I'm thinking that, we should be getting an increase in our interest rates. So I would follow up on that too, and they're very good about it.
And just to support my curiosity, as you'll say, park and rec fees, we budgeted 104, we received 9,700, and I just assumed that the camp would provide a little bit more than that, but who am I to say? Okay. We're so early in the year, I have no suggestions to anyone that anything we should be concerned about, either revenues or expenditures. Was Angus right?
I don't think that 104 is an appropriate number. I think that was 14 or something.
And that seems.
I think that was misprint.
Oh, you think that's a misprint?
I think it's a Scrivener's error is what I'm going to call
Okay,
it.
actually, I did not look that up. I can easily go back to the original
Yeah,
source.
I think we should.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, folks.
Yeah, because the previous.
There's no way they're in there going
Yeah.
with that.
Previous year was 14. Earlier.
Unless there's. Wait for the cameras.
That is it. I'm intrigued by
I think motion
recreation.
adjourned.
Okay, I'm just intrigued by that. I thought that recreation was going to get $104,000 when you push. Where would they get?
It was a big carnival.
Yes, exactly. We've opened up a casino. Okay, Bill has suggested that we adjourn.
I will second
John has seconded that. All in favor, say aye. All right, folks, certainly we'll see you next month, but Angus is hinting that we may need to bring you in earlier, and we'll talk about, I'll keep you informed as we find each.
I do not know that.
If you don't know, John, do you?